being able to cook in a long-term grid down situation is an essential survival prep. And today, I'll be taking a look at a few ways to do that and a few tools that I think everyone should have, or at least consider a combination of these tools to be able to cook during a long-term grid down situation. The first item that we'll talk about today is this grill. You can see it has fold-out legs. I got this grill at Walmart several years ago, and I think it's like 20 bucks for this grill, and it works really well to cooking over an open fire. But you can see one of the downsides to cooking on an open fire is all this smoke, which is seen to your location for miles away, and depending on the lay of the land and the weather and everything. But you can see a lot of smoke here, and this is really great for camping or great for situations where operational security and security in general isn't an issue. Now let's go take a look at a few more tools you can use for cooking in a long-term grid down situation. And these tools will be tools that will offer more security, meaning that you won't have all this smoke all the time. I mean, some campfires, if they're made right, don't put off this much smoke. And some of this wood is just a little bit damp. Is one reason that it's putting off more smoke than normal. But in general, all open campfires like this put off smoke, and it can be a security risk. So the other tools we're going to look at here today will offer more security because they don't put off all this smoke. Okay, one of the first things to consider, especially if you're starting out and have nothing to cook with in a grid down situation, the very first thing I take a look at is a Coleman stove, such as this one. This one uses the little 1 pound propane canisters you can get at Walmart for like or any camping supply store or anything like that, Kmart or anywhere. Just go in the camping section, they have these stoves, and they have the fuel in the little 1 pound bottles. These work really well. This one is got the ignition, so you just turn and it will light the burners. Like I said, it uses the 1 pound propane canisters. You can also get a hose kit to go over here. It hooks into this, and you can then hook this into one of the larger canisters, like a 100 pound canister, to for long-term usage. Again, these are recommended to use outside. I know people that use these inside with all the windows open and good ventilation. I don't suggest that because it can release carbon monoxide. But I know people that's done it and they're still alive, but that's not advice. You should always follow the manufacturer's advice, and that's to use this outside. This is one of the most common stoves used by weekend campers and things like that, and it works really well. I think I gave like $35 for this at Walmart several years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago. Actually, it's been a long time, but it works really well, and it folds up, folds down. All these here fold down, these lids fold down, and for storage, works really well. If you're going to go that route with the Coleman stove, and you're going to use the 1 pound cylinders, I would suggest storing back at least 1 cylinder of the 1 pound cylinders, 1 per week for use. So if you're going to store enough fuel to last a month, I would store back at least 4 of those 1 pound canisters. Preferably 2, but usually 1 will provide enough cooking fuel for a family. Okay. Gosh, something fell off the tree on top of my building here. So if you're going to store enough for, say, a month, you need 4 cylinders, but preferably 8. And you do the math on and on like that for a year's supply of these cylinders. And you can also, like I said, you can get the 100 pound tanks and the kit. I'll link to that in the description box below if I can find it on Amazon. But you can put the kit, it's like a hose and it goes into it, and you can run this to a 100 pound tank. So a 100 pound tank should last about a year for most people. It don't hurt to have 2, like I said. You always have extra as possible. But anyway, if you're going to use a Coleman stove like this one, it's also a good idea to look into something like this. This is a Coleman camp oven. This here folds. This oven will fold down flat. It's about that thick when folded, and it's made. You can see the inside. It has a grill. It has a grill and thing in it here. It has a temperature gauge. But anyway, like I said, it folds down, but it's made to take and put on top of the Coleman stove like that. You can see it there or not. Made to put like that on top of the Coleman stove. And then you just put your bread, pizza, whatever in your baking, and turn the stove on, and it heats inside the oven. Now if you watch your heat hand here, it's a heat indicator. It goes up to 600 degrees. It starts out at 100 and 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 degrees, and we'll gauge here on it. And we'll tell you how hot it's getting. You can't, it's hard to control the heat, but you can turn the burners down and open the, and it's got little vents and stuff in it too. It actually, I've used this a couple of times, and it works pretty well. But if you're going to rely on the Coleman propane stove like this little camp stove here, I'd look into one of these ovens also. I think I bought this at Walmart 2 years ago. I don't even know if they still make this or not. I should have looked before I made this video, but anyway, I will look on Amazon, see if I can find this on Amazon. If I find it on Amazon, then I'll include a link below. Check that out and see if I found this. I'll also link to the hose kit to be able to hook this Coleman stove into the 100-pound tanks. The second thing I look into for grid down cooking, I've showed you all this before, is EcoZoom rocket stove. You can see this in my other video of my top 10 prepper items. I'll link to up here in the card. You can check that out. But these work really well, and unlike the open fire that I showed you at the start of this video, this right here puts off very little smoke. Puts off very little smoke, and you can cook outside with this, and your neighbors won't even see. They might smell the food cooking if they're close enough, but as far as the smoke goes, most likely they don't see no smoke. This will also use, you can use wood in this that you can find out. You can use charcoal and different fuel sources in this stove, which I think they're like $120 on Amazon. I'll link in the description below to this stove on Amazon. You can check it out for yourself. But my number one, this right here, EcoZoom rocket stove, is my absolute number one cooking source that I suggest everyone have for a long-term grid down situation. The little Coleman propane stove will work well if you have enough fuel stored up. But this right here, you can actually go out and find your fuel with this EcoZoom rocket stove. You can potentially cook pretty much forever using this. The next cooking tool I look into for post-collapse grid down cooking situation, especially if you have a lot of sun in your location, is a sun oven. These things work really well. This is like $200 something on Amazon. Again, I'll link to this in the description box below. But you can make these homemade, but I found that this one, I've made them before, and I found that this American sun oven works a lot better than my homemade versions do. If you have a lot of sun in your location and long summers and a lot of sun, this is really recommended. Down south, I mean, I can use this sun oven for 7 or 8 months out of the year at least, and it works really well. But anyway, guys, that's a quick look at some of the items I suggest that you put back, or you look into at least, to and choose one of them anyway. How you can choose all of them like I have, because you can't have enough backups. You need backups on top of more backups. As the saying goes, shit happens, and it does. You need to be prepared for that to happen. So having multiple sources is a good idea. But if you're just starting out and you're looking for something right now that's cheap to get and easily to find, I suggest a Coleman stove with some of the little 1 pound cylinders to start out with, and then get the oven to go with it. But my absolute number one choice, like I said, is EcoZoom rocket stove. This thing is great, puts off very little smoke, and you can find your fuel sources out in nature. Or you can also, as I'll show you here in a minute, you can store up charcoal, which works really well. Storing charcoal like this to use in your EcoZoom rocket stove, or any rocket stove for that matter, but like I said, I prefer the EcoZoom rocket stove to any of the other ones I've ever saw. And it's about a lot better than my homemade ones also. It's like the sun oven. I can make sun ovens that work, but the American sun oven, like I showed you a minute ago, works better, heats better, and this works better. It's like the EcoZoom rocket stove. And you might be able to make one that works better yourself, and you're welcome to give it a try. But for me, the EcoZoom rocket stove is my number one top choice for post-grid, grid collapse, grid down cooking. But anyway, you can store charcoal like this, and charcoal is really cheap. You can store it in like metal containers like this, and it will last forever. And it works really well in the EcoZoom rocket stove for cooking. Well folks, that's it for this video. I hope you learned something, hope you enjoyed the video. And once again, check the description box below for links to the products that I've mentioned in this video. You can click those links and go to Amazon to check out the current price and availability of those products. If you're not subscribed yet, then please do that and turn on notifications so you get notified each time that I upload a brand new video. Thanks for watching, everybody.